Oh yeah, I've written a book, 5 Steps to a Roadie Job, how to get working on the road with international touring bands. And it's a step-by-step guide to getting your first work, going on tour, what's expected of you, and how to get there. I was going to do a big long video about describing the chapters, but instead I've used Google's Notebook LM, which is a form of AI, to create a podcast about it. And so instead of me standing here and explaining all about it, you can listen to the two AI-generated podcast hosts discussing the book. And it's really quite interesting. They pick out bits that I never thought about the book. So please give it a listen and enjoy.
All right, so have you ever thought about like what it would be like to work on tour with a band
Yeah,
as a roadie?
definitely.
It's kind of a cool thought, right?
It seems really exciting.
Yeah. Well, today we are going to take a deep dive into a book called 5 Steps to a Roadie Job by Andy Reynolds.
Oh, cool.
And Andy actually has a ton of experience himself as a tour manager and an audio engineer.
Awesome.
So we're really hoping to like get some actual actionable steps out of this and not just kind of like the vague
Yeah.
advice you kind of hear a lot of times.
Romanticized notions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just dive right in, I guess.
Sounds good.
One of the things that I thought was really interesting right off the bat that Andy talks about
Yeah.
is this idea that there's not really such a thing as a roadie job.
Right.
It's not like you go on,
Yes.
Indeed or Monster or whatever and search roadie.
You're not going to find a job posting for that.
Exactly.
He makes that really.
It's really more about building a career as like an independent contractor.
Yeah. That's the part that I thought was really cool about his approach. He's like, look, you have to run it like a business.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into this other thing that I was like really surprised by, actually.
Okay.
I always just assumed that like the record labels
Right.
pay the roadies.
Same here.
But no, it's actually the artist that pays the roadies.
That was news to me.
Yeah, it's like their own personal like staff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes sense when you think about the nature of the relationship, right?
Totally. Yeah.
It's the artist who needs you there on the road. It's the artist who's relying on your skills and your expertise to make the show happen.
Right. It's not the record label out there,
Yeah,
making sure that the guitars are tuned or
exactly. And I think it emphasizes the importance of networking and building relationships directly with the artists and their management teams,
Right.
because those are the people who are making the hiring decisions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess it really all comes down to who, yeah.
It seems like it is.
So another thing that Andy talks about that I thought was really interesting
Yeah.
is this idea of the live music ecosystem.
Okay.
And he breaks it down into like 3 main players.
Okay.
So you have the artists and their management,
Mm-hmm.
the booking agents who like find the gigs, and then the concert promoters who like put on the shows.
So the ones who are actually booking the venues and making sure the tickets are sold.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like, why is that so important for somebody who wants to be a roadie to understand that like big picture?
Well, I think it helps you to see where you fit in, right? Like how you as a potential roadie can plug into that system.
Okay.
For example, if you're interested in working with a local band that's starting to get some traction, maybe getting in touch with their manager would be a good idea,
Yeah,
because they're the ones who are going to be thinking about logistics and how to scale up as the band grows.
makes sense.
And they might be the ones who are open to bringing on extra hands like a roadie to help out.
Right. So you're not just like throwing resumes out there
Ex-
into the void.
You're being strategic about it.
Yeah.
And I think the more you understand how those different players interact with each other,
Yeah.
the better equipped you'll be to navigate the industry and find your niche.
Totally. Okay, so let's talk about different types of roadie roles.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of times people have a very stereotypical image in their head,
Yeah.
but Andy breaks it down into 3 main crew categories. So there's the house crew,
Okay.
the artist touring crew, and the supplier touring crew.
So those are the folks who are providing the equipment.
Yeah, like the audio and lighting companies and stuff like that.
Interesting.
So which one do you think is going to be like our main focus here?
Well, I think for someone who's dreaming of life on the road with a band, it's definitely going to be the artist touring crew.
Yeah, makes sense.
They're the ones who are traveling with the band, handling everything from setting up the stage to managing the instruments to making sure the artist has a bottle of water when they need it.
Right. That sounds kind of cool. And Andy kind of highlights 2 roles within that crew that seem really crucial.
Okay.
There's the concert tour manager.
That sounds like a big job.
It does. And the backline tech.
Okay.
So what do you know about like the concert tour manager?
Well, just from the name, it sounds like they're kind of like the CEO of the whole operation.
Right.
They handle all the logistics, the travel arrangements, accommodation, making sure everyone's where they need to be when they need to be there.
And dealing with any problems
Oh, I'm sure there are tons of problems.
that come up.
Yeah, that come up unexpectedly.
Yeah, high pressure, I would guess.
Definitely.
Okay, so what about the backline tech?
Now, that one sounds more like the musician's best friend.
Yeah.
They're the ones making sure all the instruments are in perfect condition,
Yeah.
ready to rock, tuning guitars, setting up drums, even knowing like a musician's specific preferences for strings or amps.
Wow. So it's not just like,
It's a lot of responsibility.
yeah, it's not just like, plugging things in.
No, it's a very skilled position.
Yeah. And you have to like gain the trust of the artist too.
Oh, for sure.
So you're like part therapist, part magician,
I love that analogy.
keeping those instruments singing.
Keeping everyone happy.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about how to actually get one of these gigs.
All right, let's get into it.
So Andy's first step is all about networking,
Okay.
but he makes it really clear that it's not just about, going
Yeah.
to a conference and handing out business cards.
Right. It's not just about collecting contacts.
Exactly. It's about building relationships and like making yourself indispensable.
Making those genuine connections.
Exactly. He shares a really great anecdote about Mike Buffa, who's the guitar tech for Maroon 5.
Oh, wow.
And he got his start just by like striking up conversations with people about gear.
So just being genuinely interested and engaging with people in the industry?
Yeah, and like his passion and his willingness to learn,
Right.
like open doors that wouldn't have been available through, just like sending out resumes.
That's really inspiring.
It is. But what about like practical stuff?
Yeah.
Like, does it matter where you live?
Yeah.
Do you need to have like special licenses or anything?
Those are good questions.
Yeah.
So Andy says that while living in a music hub like LA or Nashville can be helpful,
Yeah.
it's not a deal breaker.
Okay.
What's more important is that you're resourceful and proactive in building your network wherever you happen to be.
So like hitting up those local music venues, those open mic nights,
Exactly.
it's just as important
And
as,
maybe even more so.
yeah, as, going to some fancy industry conference.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. And as far as licenses go,
Yeah.
he says a driver's license is pretty much essential.
Yeah, you're going to be driving vans, hauling gear, navigating unfamiliar cities.
Makes sense.
And if you're hoping to tour internationally, a passport is a must.
Okay, so step one is all about laying the groundwork.
Yeah, building your network, honing your skills, and getting those essential documents in order.
Exactly. But how do you get experience when, like, every job you apply for requires experience?
It's the classic catch-22.
Yeah, so that's where Andy's second step comes in.
Okay.
And he has two main suggestions.
All right.
Working as a stagehand or becoming a merchandise seller.
Okay. Those don't sound particularly glamorous.
They don't.
But I can see how they'd give you valuable insights into the world of touring.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about the stagehand route.
Okay, so being a stagehand is all about hard work and hustle.
Okay.
You're loading and unloading equipment, setting up the stage, breaking it down, making sure everything's in place for the show.
Sounds like a lot of heavy lifting.
It's physically demanding,
Yeah.
but you get to see how concerts are put together.
Behind the scenes.
Yeah, and you get to interact with touring personnel.
So even if you're not like directly working for the band,
Right.
you're still like in the environment.
You're immersed in it.
Yeah, and you're making connections.
You're building those relationships.
Okay, so what about the merchandise seller path?
Now, this one might seem like a detour,
Yeah.
but it's actually a really good way to get your foot in the door. You're traveling with the tour, observing the whole process,
Mhm.
and you get to interact with the crew during downtime.
Right.
Plus, you're building customer service skills.
Yep.
You're learning how to handle money, which are both valuable in any freelance career.
That's a good point. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
So it's like low pressure.
Yeah, you're kind of easing your way in.
Yeah. And you're still making some money.
And making those connections.
Okay, so once you've kind of dipped your toes into the touring world like that,
Mm-hmm.
then you got to get serious about like the business side of things.
Well, yeah. Building your
Ah.
career as a roadie.
Which brings us to Andy's third step.
Right.
Treat your career like a business.
Okay.
Now, this is where I think a lot of people get intimidated.
It sounds scary.
Yeah. Is it really that complicated to set yourself up as a freelancer?
Well, Andy assures us that it's not as daunting as it might seem.
Okay.
Starting as a sole trader or a sole proprietorship is usually the simplest way to begin,
Okay.
but you do need to be organized. So what kinds of things should you be thinking about?
Yeah, like if I'm putting on my business owner hat,
Exactly.
what do I need to do?
Well, first you got to determine your startup costs.
Okay.
Do you need to invest in specific tools,
Okay.
a website, business cards?
So thinking about those expenses right from the get-go.
Right.
Okay.
Public liability insurance is crucial.
Oh, yeah. Why is that?
It protects you financially if someone gets injured or property gets damaged while you're working.
Okay, that's a good point.
You don't want to be personally liable.
Right.
And then you need to plan your cash flow realistically.
Yeah,
Touring gigs can be sporadic,
totally.
so you got to be prepared for those inevitable gaps between jobs.
Okay, so it's not just about rocking out.
No.
It's about being smart.
It's about being a responsible business owner.
Yeah, exactly. Which is good advice for any freelancer, really.
Absolutely.
So once you've got your business foundation in place,
Yeah.
then you're ready for step 4,
Okay.
which is actually finding those roadie gigs.
The exciting part.
Yeah, but we are going to have to wait for the next part of our deep dive
I can't wait.
to get into that. So stay tuned.
We'll be back.
We'll be right back after a quick message to unpack how to land those coveted gigs and get your roadie career rolling.
Sounds good.
All right, so we're back and ready to really dig into step 4 of Andy's book.
Finding those gigs.
Yes, finding the gigs. So he says you got to start local.
Okay.
Like even if you don't live in a big music hub like Nashville or LA.
Right. Every city has a music scene.
Yeah, exactly. So find those local bands that are up and coming.
Yeah. The ones that are starting to gain some traction.
Yeah. And maybe you can grow with them.
Yeah. Build your reputation.
And tour with them as they get bigger and bigger.
That's a great point.
And while you're doing that, he also says to connect with concert production suppliers.
Okay, so the companies that rent out the audio and lighting equipment and stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they often need freelance techs for events.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that can be a really good source of consistent work.
Especially when you're just starting out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you got to connect with concert production managers and tour managers.
Those are the bug ones.
Yeah, because they're the ones who are assembling the crew.
They're the gatekeepers.
Yeah, so how do you even find those people?
Well, LinkedIn is a really good resource.
Sure.
A lot of those folks have profiles that highlight their experience and connections.
So you can kind of see who they've worked with?
Yeah, and get a sense of their network.
Okay.
There are also industry directories you can search.
Okay.
And you can even reach out to local production companies.
Right.
See who's handling their tours.
It's like detective work.
It is a little bit, yeah.
And then once you've identified some potential contacts, don't be afraid to just reach out.
Right, send them an email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A polite email.
Yeah, just express your interest.
Highlight your skills.
Exactly.
He also talks about shadowing, which is basically just watching experienced roadies at work.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. But he's you got to do it the right way.
How do you mean?
Don't just show up and expect them to
Right, don't be a nuisance.
Yeah.
You got to be proactive.
Yeah, ask questions.
Offer to help.
Show that you're serious about learning.
Exactly. All right, so let's say you've landed a gig.
Okay.
You've rocked the show. Everything went smoothly.
Awesome.
Now you got to get paid.
The most important part.
Yes. And this is where Andy's own early mistakes.
Oh.
Provide some really valuable lessons.
Okay.
He's you got to have those awkward money conversations up front.
Right. Don't be afraid to talk about money.
Exactly. He's a big advocate for negotiating a pro.
So what does that look like?
Well, it doesn't mean being aggressive or demanding.
Okay.
It means being clear and professional and making sure you're being fairly compensated.
So knowing your worth.
Yes. And having those conversations before you set foot on stage.
Okay, so what else does he recommend when it comes to getting paid?
Well, one crucial detail is invoicing the right entity.
Okay.
Sometimes it's the artist's company directly,
Okay.
but other times, especially for promotional gigs, it might be the record label.
Right.
So you got to figure out who to invoice to make sure you get paid on time.
Right, which is why it's so important to understand that whole ecosystem.
Yeah, and it all comes back to that.
He also stresses the importance of having clear terms of service.
Okay.
So a contract
Mm-hmm.
that outlines your duties, your responsibilities,
Okay.
and any exceptions.
What do you mean?
For example, an audio engineer might say their contract doesn't include setting up the drummer's personal microphone collection.
So setting boundaries
Exactly.
so you don't get taken advantage of.
And to prevent misunderstandings down the road.
Makes sense.
And then finally, never underestimate the power of a clear payment schedule.
Especially on long tours.
Yeah, because you don't want to be waiting months to get paid.
Mhm.
So Andy recommends requesting upfront payments for a portion of the work
Okay.
and then setting up regular installments throughout the tour.
So you're getting paid consistently.
Exactly. All right, so now let's say you've successfully navigated a few gigs.
Okay.
You've built some solid relationships.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting paid on time.
You're killing it.
How do you keep that momentum going?
That's a good question.
So that's where step 5 comes in.
Okay.
The art of staying top of mind.
Even when you're not working.
Exactly. It's about nurturing those professional relationships.
Keeping yourself on their radar.
Yeah. So it's not just about like showing up, doing a great job, and then disappearing until the next gig.
No, you got to stay in touch.
Right.
Send a holiday card.
Okay.
Share an interesting article.
Just like little things to show that you're thinking about them.
Yeah, you're invested in their success.
And that you're like constantly learning and growing.
Exactly.
It's like subtly reminding them that you exist.
That you're a valuable resource.
Yeah. Attending industry events and conferences can also be a good way to like network and stay informed.
Yeah, and reconnect with people you've worked with in the past.
So even when you're not on the road, you're still hustling.
That's the life of a freelancer.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the world of roadies.
I was excited to hear more.
Yeah, and I have to say, like, reading Andy's book really, like, opened my eyes to just, like, what this career is all about.
Yeah, it's definitely not like a 9-to-5 desk job.
No, not at all. But, like, one of the things that really stood out to me was, like, the human element.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about, you know, setting up equipment.
It's about the people.
It's about the people.
Yeah, building those relationships.
Yeah, Andy talks about how, like, roadies almost become, like, part of the band's family.
Right. You're on the road together. You're sharing these experiences.
Yeah, those late nights. The crazy schedules.
The adrenaline rush of a live show.
Yeah, you're seeing them like at their best and at their worst. Yeah, behind the scenes.
Yeah, and it's not just the band. It's like the managers, the promoters.
The whole crew.
Yeah, it's like this whole community.
A tribe.
Yeah, a tribe of people who like speak the same language.
The language of music.
Yeah, and understand that magic that happens when a band connects with their audience.
It's special.
It is. But Andy doesn't like sugarcoat things either.
Right.
He talks about the long hours, the physically demanding work.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely not easy.
No.
Yeah.
And like the pressure to deliver a flawless show every single night.
That's got to be intense.
Yeah. But he also talks about those moments of pure joy.
Right.
Like hearing the roar of the crowd.
Yeah.
Seeing the artist like totally in the zone.
And knowing that you had a part in making that happen.
Yeah, you're like behind the scenes, but you're still part of the show.
You're contributing to that energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He has this great quote where he talks about the feeling of being in the zone during a show.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, he says like you're tired, you're sweaty, but you're riding this wave of adrenaline and pure musical bliss.
That's a great way to put it.
It is, and it makes you realize that like the rewards of this job go way beyond like just a paycheck.
It's about the passion.
Yeah, the satisfaction of a job well done.
The connection with something bigger than yourself.
Yeah, and the stories.
Oh, yeah, the stories.
You have so many stories.
From life on the road.
Yeah, the crazy mishaps.
The near disasters.
The moments where everything just like went wrong.
And then you somehow pulled it off.
You're not just building a career, you're building a collection of memories.
Yeah, memories that you'll carry with you forever.
And that's what makes Andy's book so great. It's not just like a how-to guide.
It's more than that.
It's like a celebration of a lifestyle.
And a testament to the power of music.
Yeah, and a reminder that even like the most ordinary jobs
can be extraordinary.
Yeah, if you're passionate about them.
Yeah, Andy's message is really inspiring.
He's like, if you have that fire in your belly, that love for music, that willingness to work hard,
then this life might be for you.
Exactly. So if you're ready to embark on this adventure, definitely check out Andy Reynolds' book, 5 Steps to a Roadie Job.
It's a great resource.
It is. And that's it for our deep dive into the world of roadies.
That was awesome.
We hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And maybe it inspired you to chase your own dreams.
Find your place in the world of music.
Whether it's behind the scenes or on stage.
Rock on.
So there you go. That was Notebook LM's AI podcast discussing my book, 5 Steps to a Roadie Job. I hope you found it useful. I really found it useful, having written the book, to hear an AI extract thoughts and little aspects of it that I've not really thought about. So the book is available at all good booksellers, on ebook and in a nice printed copy, as you can see here. So if you're looking to get working on the road with international touring bands, 5 Steps to a Roadie Job.